right on into it. Don't get like, subscribe, and share. So today we're gonna get right into it. So today we're just talking. Today we are talking about confessions of a substitute teacher and how wild and crazy it is out here, man. And you might say, well, why did you take that job anyway? I mean, it was something that it was something like I wanted to do, and it was really something that I wanted to do in that moment. It really and truly was, giving the times that we live in and the schools are like war zones with, you know, people, y'all know, y'all watch the news. So, but yeah, and is being a substitute for everyone? No. Is what would I do it long term? No, I would not. I definitely don't see myself doing it long term. It was just for the moment. You know how it is out here. You kind of need something to do in a sense of it. But that's how it is for me. I always tell I'm a kid at heart, and that's how I can um what's the word I'm looking for? That's how I can kind of sympathize with the younger generation, especially like the young kids. You know what I mean? And like one thing I'll say about being a substitute is that the class. Well, one thing I'll say is that the classrooms are crazily over there. The classrooms are just too overcrowded. They are just way too overcrowded. They don't tell you anything about like what's going on with these kids. They don't. Like you'll walk in a class and like some of these kids, they'll say they're on the spectrum. They have emotional issues. They have a lot of these kids have a lot of these kids have a lot of like emotional at a very young age. And that's honestly, and honestly, that's not something that and honestly, that's not something that they share with you. Like when you become a substitute, like really and truly, that is not something that they share with you. They don't share like what's going on with these kids. It's almost like you walk into a class and it's like surprise. You're dealing with all of these kids with like all of these emotional issues. And what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? So, man, we're talking about confessions of a substitute teacher, and don't forget to subscribe. So yeah, they don't tell you anything about what's going on with these kids in the classroom, and they don't train you at all. You watch a few videos, and it's like one good thing about it is that you get to pick your schedule. So if you only want to work a few days out of the week, cool. You can do that. If you want to work with certain grade levels, you can do that, which I prefer to work with. Me personally, I prefer to work with certain grade levels. Now the bad thing is that you have so many days off. It's like when the kids are in the school, you're off. When when the summertime, like if but I think you can get like unemployment or something like that. But probably better to have something else. It's definitely better to have something else going on. But I my for me this year, the school year started for me working in the high schools, and that was a very eye opening because I didn't understand what was it like ISS and all of that stuff. And they talk about the prison to the school of prison pipeline. All that stuff is real, man. And it's like I always say, try to reach these kids while they're very young, because once they get to like middle school, high school, they know everything. It's hard to kind of reach them, not impossible, but very hard. I haven't been in the middle schools. I wouldn't dare step foot in those middle schools. Like, I'm subbing in a very big city, and like, this is a rough city, and where I'm living in now. I can and a lot, and you can see it through a lot of these kids, not just in the school systems, but you know, just society within itself, the music, how they, and I think the most powerful thing they have now is technology. But when my first time subbing in the high schools, it was like I was saying, they kind of put you, the classrooms are overcrowded, so it's like it'll be you it'll be like you and like 31, 32 kids, sometimes 30, 20, 28. So that's that within itself is a little tricky to manage. Then you got all these kids, all these personalities, they don't respect subs as it is, that's another thing, um you're trying to battle. There was one incident. There was this kid, like this Mexican kid. He might have been in the 10th grade, I don't know, but him and his friends, they kept clowning around and clowning around and clowning around. And I told him to sit down like 7 different times. I was like, "Sir, please have a seat, please have a seat." And I got up and I got in his face and I said, like, "What is wrong with you?" I said, "Can you not understand, like, what Chris Tucker said in that movie? Can you not understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?" So he's just like I'm trying to talk to him. I'm like, I said, "Is there something wrong with the chair where you can't sit down? Is the chair hurting you? Like, um, help me to understand why you can't sit down." Like these a lot. That's why I don't sub in high school. These children, oh my lord, they need discipline, and they need discipline on the highest levels. They do, but they're not going to get it. So if they don't care, their parents don't care, the school doesn't care. So hey, that's how it goes. So I'm trying to get him to, like, I told him to sit down. I was trying to get him to sit down, and walked up to him. I said, "Well, what's wrong?" I said, "Can you not comprehend English?" I said, "What do you not understand the word sit down? Like, what is wrong with you?" I said, "Are you like?" What did I ask him? I said, "Are you like mentally challenged?" I said, "Are you?" I said, "Is something going on with your mind mentally?" And I was just asking him. I was like, help me to understand what's going on in your mind. Why can't you sit down? Like, and again, the school, they're not going to tell you who's on medication, who's going through this. It's like it's like a guessing game. And that, like, again, that's why I just don't mess with high schools anymore, man. Because it's like, Lord, I remember going to high school, and it is 100 times worse now. But anyway, so he sat down, he put his little head down like a little puppy dog. I guess I embarrassed him, which he needed to be embarrassed. He did. He really and truly needed to be embarrassed. But anyway, so, and then there were these other kids just acting a damn fool in the class, and I'm telling you, it was getting on my. And I try. Most people say, "Oh, you're such a cool." Listen, man. I see all of these videos with teachers and these students, and I see fights breaking out in a classroom and all of these things, and I understand, because I don't know, I feel like the kids that shouldn't be in a classroom shouldn't be in a classroom, like, for real. The ones that are there to learn, focus on them. You try to reach out. I would reach out to the parents maybe once or twice. If that don't work, then I'm kicking you out of my class, and you just gonna have to fend for yourself. Anyway, So the next day I go to the school, and they they called, it's like they called me down to the, it was like, hey, we need to see you in the office. I thought something had happened, or I don't know. I don't know why they want, I'm really, they were like, hey, we need to see you in the office. So I go to the office, and they were like, yeah, yeah, there was a student, and the student said you called him mentally retarded. I said no. I asked them, was there something going on with him mentally, because he didn't want to sit down. The lady was like, yeah, well, you should have took him outside. I thought, how am I going to take him outside when there's 28 students in a class? If I walk out the class, they might burn the damn classroom down. Like, you don't know what the hell is going through the mind of these kids these days. You don't. And so she was, so anyway, I explained my side of the story, and I filled out something. But that was my last day at that school. And besides that, there was another student. Um, I don't know why these kids, it's like everybody has to go to the bathroom for some reason. It's like, can I go to the bathroom? Can I go to the bathroom? And I was like, it's like they're 3-year-olds. And I've actually subbed with like preschoolers that acted way more I don't know, acted way more um like, I'm just saying, efficiently than they did, than the high schoolers. And I'm like, man, these kids, oh my goodness. But anyway, so there was this one kid who was like, yeah, man, I need to go to the restroom. And mind you, class hadn't even started yet. So, I told him, I said, well, why don't you why just sit down and have a seat, and when let me get everybody settled in, and I'll let you go to the bathroom. And he was like, man, why you just can't let me go to the bathroom? Like screaming and jumping in my face. And I was like, I said, man, I said, y'all always come in here every class. There's always one of y'all that's just like, I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta, and it gets on your last damn nerves. It does, with these children. And that's what they are. They are children. It really does get on your nerves. But so he was like, man, don't compare me to anybody else. Don't compare me to anybody else. He was like, you don't know me, man. You oh, let me drink some. And he like, man, you better ask. He said, man, you better ask Mr. Such and Such. I guess that was a teacher that's normally there. And he's like, man, you better ask Mr. Such and Such. Man, you don't know me. Man, I'll mess you. He said, man, you know what I'll do to you? So I was sitting down at this time. And I said, wait, what'd you say? He said, man, you know what I'll do to you, man, blah, blah, blah. And so I got up and I walked over to him. What do they call him? This was one of these YNs. And so I walked over to him, and and I'm no tough guy, but man, you're not gonna threaten me. Now I'm just there to just do this job. And anyway, so I walked up to him and I said, well, what'd you say? I just want to go. I said, bro, just go, get out of here. The class was 2 hours. He disappeared for 2 hours. So, I think it was like maybe an hour or so later, I heard, you punk AB. And I'm looking around like, what the hell was that? And come to find out that was him, you know. But anyway, so lunchtime comes around, and now after I had to deal with the first incident when I had to go to the office, and I had to go to the office and deal with that, the incident from yesterday with that kid acting a fool in the classroom. So he comes back again and he threatens me again, and he's like, hey man, he said, what he said? He said, hey man, you remember me? And so much happened during the day. I'm like, I'm looking at him, I'm like, nah, not really. I'm like, at this point, I'm trying to go eat. And he's like, I lost my appetite at that point. He's looking at me like, man, yeah, you lucky, man, you lucky. I said, man, you lucky I left. All you have to do is let me go use the bathroom. man, you know what I could have did to you, and blah 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 blah. So I tried to diffuse the situation, and I told him, I said, listen, I said, look, that was earlier in the day. Why don't you go your way, and I'll go my way. And he was like, yeah, 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 yeah. You lucky you said that, because I was gonna do blah. I said, uh-huh. I said, yeah, okay. And I was standing right. He had a chance to make his move. He didn't do anything. A lot of these people are just, a lot of people don't talk. But what's going on, folks? Again, I'm Mr. Soul of a Man, and this is Confessions of a Substitute Teacher. Like, oh my goodness, man. It's whew, goodness. But anyway, and so after that, I went to go find some teachers, and I was like, hey, look, a student just threatened me again for the second time. And they were like, oh, well, go see Dr. Such and Such. And so I said, hey, Dr. Such and Such, hey, you remember earlier when you asked me, was everything okay? I said, well, I have a story for you. And I just told her, the story about the student. And she said, well, go to the office and fill out the paperwork. And that's what I did. I filled out the paperwork, and later on, it was the last it was the all of this stuff happened in one day. So that's anyway. So the last class period, um the students come in, and I'm trying to get them settled. And there was one incident. There was a kid. Everybody kept asking to go to the bathroom. Of course, when they go to the bathroom, they're trying to skip class, but that's not my problem. I'm only concerned with what I can only handle what I can handle. The kids in the class, and that's it. So there was one kid. He had asked. I'm trying to get them. I'm trying to pass the time so I could get the hell out of there. Because I knew after that day I was never going back to a high school to sub again. Because I'm like, these kids are crazy. But anyway, for real, they are. Not all, but a lot. But so, there was one kid who was like, hey man, I thought I was gonna go to the back. He asked me, so he was like, I need to go and get something to eat. I'm hungry. And I was like, well, won't you go to the concession, to the vending machine? And so he went to the vending machine. He came back and give me some thumbs up, folks. These are great stories. And so he goes to the vending machine. And I was like, well, what? He was like, didn't something happen? He wasn't able to get anything. So he came back, and later he was like, he had to go to the bathroom. And so there was this Mexican kid. So the kid, like, he was giving him the bathroom. He had came back. He was giving him the bathroom pass. So he felt disrespected, because he felt like the dude, like, snatched the thing out of the bath. He felt like the kid snatched the bathroom pass out of his hand. And so he was like, he came, sat down. He was like, man, I think that dude, he said, he said, man, I think that dude just disrespected me. And he said, man, I think that dude just disrespected me. He was like, man, I'm gonna have to walk up to him and see what's up. And I'm trying to get him. I'm like trying to get him to calm down. I'm like, man. I said, I'm like, listen, it's the last period. The last thing I need to do is to break up a fight. Then I got to go back to the office and fill out more paperwork. He's like, I don't know, man. I gotta go see what's up. So the dude walks back into the classroom, and he was like, hey man, um, when I gave you that hall pass, I think you had just snatched it out of my hand, and I'm trying to see what's up. Cause I thought that was a little disrespectful. Cause did you meant to do that, or what's going on? And the dude was like, "Oh no, man, my bad." These schools are like gang territory, man. That's crazy. But anyway, dude was like, "Nah, hey man, my bad. I didn't mean to, hey, my bad. Oh, okay, because I was just trying to see, because I just felt some kind of way about it, And and after that, the dude, he came back, and I was like, man, listen, well, look, I said, we got like 20 minutes left. You think you could just kind of cool out until, I said, man, we got like 20 minutes left. I said, you think you could just kind of cool out until, until we get out of class? Because at this point, I'm just trying not to let them have a riot in the classroom. Like, again, if you Lord, it's like you need it's like you need certain skill sets to be in these classrooms. It's like, even if you have degrees and teach that's not enough. I'm telling you, you just need to be a certain kind of person to be able to deal with these kids. You do. You got to meet them at their level. You got to be able to talk to them a certain kind of way. You got to be able to diffuse problems. Keep your head straight. They don't pay enough for this. They don't. Like, but in that same day, and all this stuff happened the same day. There was a fire drill. And so, we get up and we go walk out the class, and we get into like this little corridor where the stairs are, and I was in the middle of all them kids, and when I tell you, a lot of them were funky, I almost passed out. What that song? Dun, 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 dun. A funky town. But a funky town. Those kids were like, oh my goodness. Oh, I thought you could just, when I tell you those kids were so funky, I literally almost passed out. Like, I swear to you, I almost passed out. But anyway, so they don't train you for this stuff. Like I said, they let you watch a few videos and that's it. And just kind of, I guess their thinking is, as long as somebody's in a classroom, that's good enough. But, and after that incident with them, and there was another time I was in this music class. This one kid wasn't supposed to be in there. When I tell you, they acted a fool in there. They were eating. They went into a room they wasn't supposed to go into, and I'm like, man, this is. I'm like, but hey, I'm like this. If they're not going to discipline their kids, what more can I do? Like, seriously. I'm like, this is like choir. They're supposed to be, they this is choir. They're supposed to be in here singing or practicing, something. They just in there acting, using the instruments to hit each other and running around the class. But, hey, and that's why I never went back to the to sub in the high schools, because it was crazy and chaotic. And I was like, man, this is insane. Like, who would want to come in here and deal with this? Even with like the little ones, it's like, even what was this, Tuesday? Or yeah, Tuesday. It's like, they had me in a class with, like, it was kindergarten, and you would think, oh man, that should be cool, the little kids, but oh Lord, they were almost worse than the high schoolers that day, because they're run, they're they're running around the classroom, they're kicking each other, they're speaking fluent Spanish, which, my Spanish is muy poquito, very little Spanish that I speak, very, very little. But, and they're running around the classroom acting a fool, trying to get them. And the crazy part is, they don't send anybody in there to help you. I don't know if it's a staffing issue or what. Like, somebody will come in there, they'll calm down, then they're running around the classroom like a bunch of fools. And then it's like, then you hear, oh, well, they're not normally like this. They're like, that's a lie. These little kids, I think they know who to play with. And, um, like, we were at recess, and there was this lady. I think she works there and she helps you. This lady had looked like she was about 85 years old, and there was this one special needs kid. And I had worked there before, and so this kid, like, he just ran. he like ran for the gate. And I looked and I turned and I looked and I said, and it looked like he actually hopped the gate. It looked like he hopped the gate and like like he was on the other side of the fence. So I said, let me go get this kid and bring him back over here. So I grabbed him and walked him back over there, so they could watch him. And he likes to just jump on the ground. And this is like, I don't know how much the little dude weighs. Got to be 100 and something pounds. So that's dead weight. You gotta pick him up and all that stuff. But nobody goes to school. Nobody go to these little jobs for a workout. You would think like, oh man, like this would be so. Because you hear people say, oh man, you just have to really be cut out for it. I'll just say that for me at this point, I choose very, very wisely where I go. I choose very, very wisely because you know, there I went. I think this was this week. Went to one school and last week I don't know. There was this one kid. It's like a special needs kid, and he just ran. It was pre. I think it was that pre K. I think it was kindergarten. And he just I forgot his name, but he just runs around the classroom and does whatever he wants. Just like that Key and Peele skit with Jimmy. It's like he just runs, he just does whatever he wants. And a lot of the special needs kids, they're smart. They're very, very smart kids, but they use that crutch of, I don't know how their parents are. Oh well, they don't know. Yeah, they know better. A lot of these man, listen, a lot of these kids just need their little ass beat. They do. One. I'm telling you, that'll solve all of the behaviors. I guarantee you that will stop. They really need to bring back corporal punishment in the schools. They do. You might say, "Oh man, that's a little hard." Okay, well, you go in those schools and deal with those little demons, and then let's see what you have to say about it. Seriously, because it's crazy. It really is crazy, And there was one time I was in an elementary school, and man, I think this might have been like second grade, second grade. I don't know, but so there's this one kid. It was, he was like passing out the papers, and he was picking up paper. It was the end of class. We maybe had like I had got everybody to line up so that they could leave class. And one kid, I turned my head for like, um, man, I thank and thank y'all for joining. I turned my head for like, it had to be, and things happen so fast in the schools. And don't forget to subscribe, folks. I turned my head for all of like maybe 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And all I heard was, like my if you watch anime, you watch the kids put the people power. It was like, and it was like, what the hell was that? I turned my head, and the one kid with the glasses, he was trying to get to the went, and the kid with the glasses that was passing papers out, he has like, let's say he has emotional issues. He gets it. He angers very quickly, very fast. So that's it. What the hell happened? And the other kid, oh, he blah. I said, I told the other kid that story. I said, get the hell out of here. I said, y'all go now. I said, y'all go get somebody to come and help me. So I'm in the classroom. I'm trying to hold him. Like I'm trying to hold him. Like that was the damn job. Like for real. Let me see. Hold on. Let me. Nope. There we go. Cool. Yeah. So, so like, I'm trying to hold this kid. It's like anybody else in that situation, that would have turned bad, man. Because, it's good that I have like some self control, and I'm like, even though he was angry, he was coming at me, and I felt like I was struggling with that little kid for like 20 minutes. Like I'm trying, he's like, let me go, you're hurting me. And I'm like, what the hell you think you doing to me, Urkel? You know what I'm saying? And he's like swinging and just, I mean, he's like swinging for the fences. And I'm like holding his arms, like holding his arms. Good thing he wasn't that strong, Lord. But I'm holding his arms back. He's like, let me go, let me go. I gotta go get him. I gotta go. I said, I'm trying to get him to calm down. So eventually, some kind of way, he bit my arm, and I said, I know this little bastard didn't just bite me. And so anyway, the other teachers came in. They're like in a big hugging circle, like, yeah, don't calm down. It's okay. Calm down. It's okay. The assistant principal looks at me. I'm like winded. I so I went 12 rounds with the champ. I'm winded. I'm sitting under the desk trying to breathe and drinking water, trying to trying to calm myself down. 'Cause and disbelief that, like, holy crap, that just happened. Like, this little kid was like, when I tell you, I've never seen a child so angry in my life. If he would have gotten a hold of that kid, he would have probably sent them to the hospital, like, for real. But man, that was crazy, you know. And I don't know. Later on in the day, I see him skipping through the hallway with a laptop and some kind of yoo-hoo drink. And I'm like, well, ain't this a bitch? They don't. I'm like, bro, that's this. Mm-mm. So man, so if you're, I guess if there's a moral to the story. If you're, or a lot of these school systems hiring, yes, for subs. I can't speak for every, you know, um, district, but it's crazy in these classrooms, man. But I would say make sure you watch out for yourself first. Make sure you're okay, like, first, and then everything else. Just deal with that accordingly, because it's really really trying. Like, mentally, it is really trying. And again, if you're watching and you stay at the end of this, don't forget to subscribe. And there were other things that happened. Oh Lord. But it's like, I don't like screaming at children. I don't like raising my voice. I just like to go in there and be chill, get through the day, and just go about my business, man. And make my money. But it's, oh Lord. That's why I said I will never go back to the high schools and sub. Middle schools I haven't been to, and I'm never going there because I can. It's probably like miniature versions of the high schools. It's crazy. And a lot of I talk to a lot of these teachers, and I'm like, well, what's going on? The parents, and then someone will say, hey, Mr. Alvarez, I've emailed all of these parents, and it'll be a class of 20, 25 kids, and two replied, and they wonder why their kids or their little darlings are failing school, and I don't know. And I remember one little girl, I think she was a second, third grade. She was like, she said, these schools are like prison. And I agree with her, because a lot of the work probably bores them because they're at home playing video games, and they're used to iPads. So for me, I would just have them watching videos, and yeah, so, like, these schools that are popping up that are AI specific, in a sense, I'm not mad at that, because that's what this generation understands, especially the younger generation. And if that can help them to progress and move a little faster, I'm all for it. Because what's happening now here is not it, and it's not working. It is just not working. It's a shame. It's sad. It is what it is. But hey, what you gonna do, huh? The only thing you can do is what you can do, and that is what that is. So, but it hasn't been on bad. Some of the kids are very funny, and I enjoy, especially like the younger ones. They're super, super funny. And some of the kids in the high school were okay. I had like a ninth grade class. They were really cool. But other than that, high schools, no. There's no way in the world. You'd have to pay me a king's ransom to go back and sub at a high school. I swear to you, you would. But yeah, man, other than that, that's pretty much been these are my confessions. Yeah, so that's pretty much been about it. It's gonna start going. I'm gonna tell myself I'm gonna start going live more, ladies and gentlemen. So, but yeah, but y'all have a great day. Happy TGIF. Don't forget to subscribe, folks. And as always, I'm out this piece. Peace.